Hello and welcome. So I see we're expecting some more participants to join, so allow it a minute or two before we start the show. So we will be recording this for distribution, but no participant lists or anything will be visible. So rest assured that your identities will be hidden. I see a few more joining. Let's give it another minute. Okay, I think it's time to get started. So welcome to today's webinar, NLP Yoga for Professionals. So allow me to introduce, allow me to introduce myself a little bit. I'll be very brief. So I've been practicing NLP now for 15 years, probably a little bit longer, but it's about 15 years since I had my first NLP training. And I've been using it ever since in business, in teaching yoga, in training teams, and coaching and so on. I also have some hypnotherapy training. I've never been practicing hypnotherapy as a client, therapist client, but I've been using it widely in my coaching practice and the learnings behind it. I'm also a brain-based coach, certified, ICF, ACC accredited coach now for 8 years. Actually, it's 9 years this year. Beside that, I'm an IRUT 200, RUT 200 yoga teacher, which is relevant for today's session. Beside that, I'm also an entrepreneur. I do coaching and team development, leadership development. Enough about me. A little bit about the Yoga Nest. So the Yoga Nest is many things. So in its physical location, it's a boutique yoga studio where we have small personalized classes, mostly Ashtanga and Yin yoga. We also do workshops, both online, traveling, and on site here in Stavanger, Norway. We do yoga teacher training. More specifically, we do Ashtanga teacher trainings. We do retreats, and we do courses, including NLP courses and continuous education courses for yoga teachers. So what we try to make, our concept is to make it a personalized journey, whether you are a yoga student or a yoga professional. Meaning that everything that we put together as a program here and everything that we do is rooted in the journey of our students and our yoga teacher, our professional yoga teacher students. All right, let me move forward. So who's in the room here today? Unfortunately, I had to convert my Zoom meeting to webinar, so I didn't figure out how to do the poll and things. But I did send out a questionnaire up front of the webinar, where we have 80 people signed up. Not as many answered the questionnaire though, but it shows that we have a mix here today of people who are full-time yoga teachers, part-time yoga teachers, and a few which is not currently teaching, but are looking into teaching yoga. So I assume that those might be in training or have the training, but are yet not practicing teachers. Beside that, we also got a few here today which already have some NLP training. Though most have either never heard about it before, it's completely new, or they've heard about it and are curious about how this can tie into yoga teaching. And we're also looking into what areas of teaching is most important to the participants to work on, and holding a deeper emotional and energetic space, 90%. Then reaching students with different learning styles, almost 70%. Helping students with their limiting beliefs, 30, and actually cueing, verbal cue, which is landing better with the students, 30, and building more confidence when I teach, had only 10%. This was a little bit surprising to me because I actually expected making verbal cues land better, to be much higher than this, because when we do research online and put it together, making the cueing in class land is the number one pain point for yoga teachers. Though I think what this is telling me is we have also been witnessing that the yoga business is moving more and more towards the personalized experience space. And we also know that the bigger organizations are also working towards making trauma-informed yoga, building awareness around it. So I think what we see here is actually witnessing that this is also what we as yoga teachers want to give our students. Beside that, I also believe that a lot of the people who signed up or take interest in NLP, they are also very aware of the teaching in the first place, and are looking for for this emotional and energetic space. All right, so to the topic of today. So NLP, or Neuro-Linguistic Programming, is something that was developed by a man named Richard Bandler and John Grinder back in the 70s. What they were doing is they were studying psychotherapists and other therapists at the time, and there was especially three that influenced them highly, which is the hypnotherapist and psychotherapist Milton Erickson, Virginia Satir, which was a family therapist, and Fritz Perls, who many of us know as the founder of Gestalt therapy. So they were looking into what made these therapists so effective in what they were doing, and what made their therapies so transformational. So that's where it set off. Now, what they discovered is what we today now know as NLP. So neuro is referencing to our nervous system and our senses, and how we are filtering this through our brain. Linguistic is the language that we use to describe our experience, or how we are making meaning to our experiences, or the information that we pick up from the outside world. And programming is the patterns, the habits that we develop, and also a little bit in there is the ability to actually change this programming or alter the program. Also worth mentioning is that when Richard Bandler and John Grinder was modeling these therapists, they were actually achieving the same result as the therapists themselves were doing. I'll move on. So NLP is most known for or in the area of therapy. So it's widely used for changing beliefs, working with trauma, building new behaviors, for coaching and leadership, rapport, influence, guiding others, and building clarity. In the educational arena, it has been had a wide impact on different learning systems to make learning more effective. Performance and sports, it's also widely known for using NLP. It's about building mental states, overcoming fear, working on focus, and so on. Health and wellness, habit change, mindset shifts, and emotional regulation. And yoga belongs also in there, also in the other ones. We will look at that later on. Other areas where it's widely used is personal development, sales and marketing. So there's a lot of courses out there, NLP for sales, NLP for marketing, a lot of personal development books and podcasts and videos. Negotiation, interrogation, so FBI and other, the customs, police, they're also all using NLP. They don't always call it NLP, but it is the learnings from NLP which is widely used there. I can also add that in my career, I've been using it for training my teams in understanding how user interface and user experience can leverage NLP knowledge. I've built help teams building a way of writing their requirements and specifications using NLP. So we can basically use it in all areas of industry and life in general. So how does this connect to yoga? So when I was making these slides, when I start thinking about how to connect it, and I'm looking back at the previous slide from this, and I see, well, we're actually in all these areas in a way with our yoga, right? So what they're using it for in therapy, like in yoga, we want to hold the spines for inner shifts. We want to work on limiting beliefs and reframe them. No, it might be limiting beliefs in I can't do this or so. It's typically not at the level that we look at it in therapy. Coaching and leadership. So all the classes that we teach when we teach yoga, we try to work on the connection and the energy, right? And we try to lead. We guide, inspire, and so on. Education. Yoga is about education, not just for teacher trainings and courses, but all the students that come to a yoga class, they are learning from that yoga class in some way or another, or at one level or another. And we will be looking more into, so it's mentioned here, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So we have different learning styles. That also brings, that is also brought to the yoga studio or in the yoga class. Performance and sports. We have all the same things in yoga, right? Mental resilience, focus, working on fear, fear of falling in a headstand or handstand, or fear of injuries, fear of breaking your neck if you fall in a headstand, right? For health and wellness, yoga is a lifestyle. So it's all about health and wellness, right? We want to change our habits, we're building self-awareness. We want to learn how to regulate our emotions, and so on. And even if, as yoga teachers or yoga professionals, coming off the mat, we also have all the same things as they have in other businesses or communities. We do sales. We do have to create or build rapport with our students and customers. We want to make sure that we hold clear boundaries and so on. Yeah, let me see here. Yeah. So what area of the teaching are you looking to improve? I think we saw that a few slides ago when I can bring it back here. So the participant answered holding deeper emotional and energetic space, reaching students with different learning styles, helping students shifting limiting beliefs, making verbal cues land better and more clearly, and building confidence when I teach. I think these are all interrelated. And when we are looking at what we have been discussing here, it's clear that these are the aspects of NLP that can help us address these goals, if you would like. So For today's session, we will only scratch the surface of NLP, of course. I focused this webinar is focused around having an introduction to the learning styles, how we learn and store information and code and decode it, and then how we can deliver clues during our classes. So for you to get something useful out of this. So my students don't always understand what I'm saying or respond how I expect them to respond. That takes us to one of the presuppositions in NLP. There are actually 14 of them. So it's kind of, for those who are new to this, it is principles that lies in the root of the NLP teaching. So this one says, the meaning of communication is the response you get. It's not about what you say, it is about what the other person that you communicate with is receiving. So it would be like something like, what you intend, you might intend to guide someone in a soft, grounded state, but then they end up just becoming more stiff or look confused, right? So what you actually communicated is what they understood. This is not personal, right? It's a powerful insight that you can use to you and your students' advantage. It means that if you listen to how your communication was received, it gives you an opportunity to adjust your communication so that it is landing properly. Okay. Skipping a little bit fast here. Yeah. So another example from this could be, you might say, soften your ribs. And half of the class is doing exactly what you intended. And then the other half just stare at you, confused, not understanding anything. Let's move on. So, how do we code and decode information? This is what the Neuro is about. More precisely, it's the representational system. And in NLP, we call them submodalities. It stands for, V stands for visual, then auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory. We'll get back to that in a bit. But for now, I would like you to do an experiment. So what I would like you to do is you can close your eyes and then imagine yourself doing a down dog. And while doing this down dog, hold it for 5 breaths. Try to relive it vividly. Now, and when you're done, after your 5 breaths, take just a moment and reflect of what was happening in this experience. How did you experience this down dog? What are the things that you noticed? And just make a mental note of that, and we will come back to it in a moment. Okay? So, our senses or our sensory system. Visual, it's what we can see. Auditory, that's what we can hear, and how we can express ourselves by speaking, right? Kinesthetic, that is our external feeling. So that would be, the touch on the skins, senses in the fingertips, feeling the temperature on your skin, etc. Olfactor, that's our smelling senses. And gustatory is our tastes. So when we eat, we have this taste, right? Now, we are connecting to our external world through these senses. So this is the only way that we can perceive what's external to our mind, and the only way that we can express to what is external from our mind. Okay, so I'll move on for the next one. So this is also how we are constructing our memories, right? So when we learn something and we want to, pick that up and remembering it later, it is also how we are recalling the memory. We are using our senses. That means that when we store something inside our brain or inside our mind, wherever it is, we store this as senses. We store it as pictures, we store it as sounds, we store it as senses, touch, how it feels external to us, tastes and scents, right? So that means what I'm saying here is that all our memories are stored as senses, and without the senses, there are no memories, right? So if you think that without the senses, there is nothing. Okay. Now let's move back to the experiment that we did with our down dog. Right now, with this principles in mind. So let's do it again. So if you come back to, you can close your eyes, or you can actually do it if you have space around you and you are in the zone for it. Otherwise, close your eyes. Imagine that you are in a down dog. You are doing your 5 or 10 breaths here, you can choose. Now try to pay attention to how you are processing this down dog. How you are processing these 5 or 10 breaths. Now, when you're done, take a few moments to reflect again. So, for some of you, you may have noticed, how does my down dog look? You might notice the shape of it. You might notice how your breath is flowing in and out of your lungs or through your nose. Others might be counting your breath, might be talking internally, placing my heels to the floor. Some of you might have noticed that you're using your kinesthetic senses, right? So how the floor feels beneath you, how it feels, how the opening in the hips are feeling, and so on. So what you are doing is that you are recalling, you're using this information to understand how to do this down dog, right? How to do your breathing. So we are here all yoga teachers, so we learned it, and the down dog is a very common asana. So we have stored how to do this in form of senses. Now imagine that someone is new to your class and they've never done this down dog or asana, so they've never learned it. Now what they will do, they will recall from as best as they can from their memories to find something that is similar to what they think and believe that this down dog should look like. And they will distort information. When we talk about distorting information from the memory, maybe you sometimes once or have experienced that you wake up in the middle of the night, you hear some sounds outside in the living room, and then you think maybe there are some burglars or something inside of the house. So you get dressed and you try to find out what if there are burglars in the house. And then when you come into the living room, it's just the air conditioning, which have been there for the last, I don't know, 1 year or 2 years or 5 years, who knows, making the same sounds every night, right? But for some reason you distorted some memories from your brain. And sometimes we also delete information. So there's a whole concept around how we distort, generalize, and delete information, which is outside of today's topic. But it's just worth taking that into consideration, especially when it comes to understanding learning styles, right? So I'll move on to the submodalities, and today we will talk about visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. These are the three modalities which is strongest represented within most of us when it comes to communicating with the external world. Now we say that we are all dominant in one out of these three, and then we typically have a secondary, and then there is one of the threes which is a lot weaker or less representative in our learning system. Okay, so what I am suggesting here is that me, myself, for example, being a visual as my primary modality, and then I'm kinesthetic as a secondary, and my auditory is less representative in me. This means that when I do my, since we were talking about the down dog, so when I do my down dog, I will, recreate this down dog, or the memory of how a down dog is done, by actually using images, or I would see it as a video in a way. And then I would, as kinesthetic is my secondary, so when I'm in the down dog there, I would, feel the space in my hips. I would feel how my air is, or how my mula bandha is lifting, right? I could also visualize it, right? So I could be in my down dog, and I can pull up my navel, and I could, see myself doing that. Yeah. So this means that when I'm also speaking, or when I'm teaching, or communicating with other people, I will also primarily be communicating with that sensory language in which I am myself learning. For most of us, we all believe that everyone else is same as us, right? And maybe you have, especially when it comes to sale, sometimes if you go into a store and you meet the salesperson there, and you just connect, right? And you buy whatever they are selling you. Then you can come into another store, and the sales person is not matching your energy at all, right? You are just not connecting. So this is what we call rapport in NLP. Now, what typically happens there is that I'm coming into the store. In the first scenario, I meet another salesperson who is either trained in NLP or he is a visual, right? Or maybe even a visual and kinesthetic. So we are communicating at the very same level. So we feel that we have a good connection right away. Now in the second store, this salesperson is auditory, and maybe he's kinesthetic second. But that means that when he is communicating with me in an auditory sensory language, I'm not connecting, right? Because we are speaking, he is speaking a language which I'm not able to understand. And the same way, I'm speaking a language that he is not able to understand. So we just don't click. And I walk out of there with my wallet intact, of course. This is also the same that we experience in the yoga studio, and we'll dip more into it later on as well. But when we are teaching, sometimes we see the same students coming back again and again and again, and it's typically the students that we really connected with, meaning they are speaking the same language, they have the same learning strategies as you have. And then we have the students that, they never show up at your class again. As a yoga student yourself, you might have noticed that you go into, you prefer this and this teacher because they connect. They're teaching you in a language that you understand, okay? So what we are doing, so this is a little bit, just summarizing what we've been talking about. So what we're doing is we are constructing and reconstructing especially with our three submodalities, and one of them being very dominant. Right? So, and we also talked a little bit about the samples here when we are communicating with a student or a teacher having the same language or representative learning system as we do. So, but what if I, as a visual, change? You know, if I have this awareness and if I have this practice of that we learn in NLP, if I can change my language to match the other person, right? That means I'm able to communicate in the same language as my student. So this is what they're doing. This is what they do in sales training, right? NLP for sales. They teach salespeople to speak in the language their customer in which they communicate with. So this is as we experience when we are connecting. We feel we have energy. We are synchronized with our students. And this brings us to the next question here. So how can we know what kind of representative system or submodalities which is dominant in other people? So one way of actually recognizing someone's sense, I'll call it sensory language from here on, is actually to listen to what they are saying. What kind of words are they using in their vocabulary? So when you say goodbye to someone, oftentimes they might say, a visual person would say, I'll see you later. An auditory person might say, let's speak later. Or a kinesthetic would say, looking forward to meet you again, right? So the list that you see here is typically the language that you can look for in another person. So the visual would be using words which is representing something visual. That would be see, look, watch, view, observe, glimpse, focus, and similar things. Right? An auditory would using words like silence, rhythm, speak, say, chat, and so on. So words that is representing the auditory senses. Kinesthetic, relax, stretch, touch, feel, press, grounded, things that you associate or words that you associate with an external sense like touch and so on. What else could I say here? So yeah, I had a coaching session yesterday where the client were asking about how can I see my peers' language? So if they are writing like an email, so if you get a question from a student as an email, or if you have some written stuff from them, then you could actually look at, okay, these words is using a lot of visual words or auditory words. Okay, I see. I didn't say or inform you that you should see so if you chat, you can send questions. There's also a Q&A option. I see I've received a few questions here. So I'll just, it's a good time to pick them up. So the first question here is, how can I tell which modality my student are operating from if they don't say anything? Yeah. So actually, I'll show you that. I'll show you one thing on the next slide. So I'll come a little bit back to how you can tell the representational system of your students, even when they're not speaking. Second one here is, how much should I adapt my language? Do I try to reach? Okay. So do I try to reach all learning styles when I make cues, verbal cues, I assume, in the class? I'll come a little bit back to that in a later slide as well. Yeah, and this third one here is quite similar. So in a real yoga class, how do I recognize a student's dominant submodality quickly? Yeah, so I think these are all tied a little bit together. How do I no, they're not speaking to you in the class, so they won't reveal their language, right? So, but allow me to come back to all these questions in a bit. I am visual, but use kinesthetic language. How about that in teaching yoga? So I think I already touched a little bit on it. So you can change your style of communicating, right? So if you know that you are, and here you say that you are kinesthetic in your language, so you are very aware then that you are kinesthetic. And if you know that the students are in one of the other languages, then you can just alter your language to match their style. Now we'll also look at it a little bit later on how you can, because how do we reach all the styles in the class? We'll also look at how you can talk to all the languages in one go. Okay. So I'll move on from here to our next. There. So this one will actually help you reveal in class what kind of representational system they have. So people's eyes are revealing a lot about their learning patterns. So as you can see from here, if you just don't pay attention to construct and recall at this point. So if your eyes if the student's eyes is looking up to either left or right, it means that they are using their visual representational system when they are recalling information, right? Or constructing visual information. Now, if they're looking horizontal to the sides, it means that they are accessing their auditory representational system. So that could be, they could read out something from their memory as words or as sounds. It could be remembering a piece of music, right? Or it could be remembering the breathing, the sound of the breathing, and so on. If they look down, and I mean down to when you are, so when I say down to left, it's down to your left when you are looking towards the student. They're accessing their kinesthetic senses. That means that if they're looking down to the left, they would be, recalling. It could be temperature. It could be recalling how it feels on the skin, how it feels in a joint when you are rotating your thigh bone, how it feels when you are lengthening your spine, or even how the knife and fork at the dinner table feels to hold in their hands. Now, looking down to the other side, they would be accessing their internal dialogue. That could be if they do self-talk, or if they, try to make sense of what you were telling them, right? So it's actually where we are making sense of the information that we receive. Okay, and some are stronger on that than others. Now, of course, we are not just one. So it means that when you look at a student or someone you communicate with, then they will look a little bit up, and they will look side and down, and so they will access all of them in that conversation or when they receive that instruction. But you will notice that they are much more in one of them than the other, and that would be the dominant. Okay. Yeah, let me say a little bit about the recall and the construct. So this is, we'll mention courses that we will have here at the Yoga Nest later on, where you can learn more. But when we recall, that means that we are picking it up from memory, right? And when we construct it, it means that we are putting something visual together to make our representation of it. This is what they would do in interrogation, for example. They would pay attention to when they ask you a question. Are you constructing or are you recalling? Now, why is this important for yoga? It's useful to understand that if you try to tell a student to do a pose which they never before have done, now they will access their memory to something that they can relate, right? And then they will try to make up this shape that that they believe that they're going to do, right? And this might be completely wrong. So it could be, but in a class, it will be very hard to pay attention to all these things. In a one-on-one teaching, it would be easier to pick up stuff like that. Okay, let us move on. So, cueing while teaching. And I will now, in these coming up slides, I will also answer some of the questions that we had before. And I can also invite, if you have any questions, pop them in here, and we'll take a short Q&A session in a bit again. So how to use this for cueing in the class. So first, let's move back to the presupposition that we had up here in the very beginning. So when you communicate, the meaning of your communication is the response that you get, right? So if they're not doing as you intended, it means that it didn't land. So use that information and adjust. So the other one is delivering the verbal cues that you're using in the language of the submodalities that you have in the class. And we can also deliver cues using all of the submodalities. So what I mean by delivering, so I'll start from the bottom here. So deliver cues using the submodalities. What I try to convey here is that in a class, you have the opportunity to do demonstrations. So when you do a demonstration, that's a very visual cue, right? So people who, students who are visual, then that demonstration will land very well with them. Now, we are not encouraging teachers to do too much of the demonstrations, of course, because that's teaching 3 or 4 back-to-back classes, then you will very quickly be pulling on some injuries, right? And you have hands-on adjustments. So when you're doing hands-on adjustments, being aware that, you know, this might be a kinesthetic cue, right? Because people who feel the senses, they will feel, if you help them to rotate their thigh, that will be stored in their memory, right? That sensation of the thigh rotating, they will think, oh, yeah, now I understand where my thigh bone is going, right? And for the auditory, they love instructions. So the simple cues, explaining things in a procedural way. Like mentioned, we do Ashtanga here, and you know, the led Ashtanga classes are in a very auditory in how you're counting, how you are calling or giving the instructions. So I even heard another teacher claiming that Ashtanga was you know, mainly attracting auditory people because there is not so much demonstration. So we were excluding the visual and kinesthetic learning styles. Now, I don't agree that we are excluding. That's more of you know, how we are guiding the class. So we can use visual language. We can guide visual students and kinesthetic students. But where I think they were right is that, you know, in a typical Ashtanga environment, you find a lot of auditory students. In a Vinyasa class where the teacher is demonstrating everything, you will most likely attract a lot of visual students. So that is also a way to understand, you know, okay, what type of learning styles do I have in the class here today? You know, if it's a guided class and there is demonstrations going on, you can assume that there is a lot of, at least a lot of the regulars would be visual. In an Ashtanga class, you could assume that probably there is, out of, let's call it the core students, those who are continually returning to an average class, you can assume that most of them are auditory in their language. Especially if you are not delivering visual cues in form of verbal visual cues or demonstrations. Because like in the sample with the salespeople, they would probably not feel that they connect with you as a teacher, and they would choose another class, right? Or they would not connect with the Ashtanga style of yoga because we're not. They don't feel connected, right? So moving on. Actually, I already tapped onto this. So visual demonstrations. Another way to address the visuals in a class could also be to position the students a little bit smart. So when, especially if you have new students, then you might place them behind and next to someone who are more experienced, because then they can get some visual cues from looking around themselves. Even though in yoga we encourage the students to not look at the one next to you, right? But the reality is when you are learning, then they will be looking at, they will need their clues to actually go through with the class, right? Otherwise they won't come back. Auditory, that's the verbal. And kinesthetic, hands-on adjustments. So let's look at verbal cues, okay? So just to bring some samples up here. For a visual person, you might say, imagine your spine lengthening. What will happen for that person is that they will, just picture their spine stretching and lengthening. Maybe they have, see their skeleton lengthening. Maybe they have some other visual. Maybe it's a picture of a long spine, a straight spine. It can be different, but it does not really matter. An auditory, then you could say, notice the space between your vertebrae as your spine is lengthening, right? Kinesthetic, feel the space feel the space between your vertebrae as you lengthen your spine. On this could be a forward fold, focus on making space in your hip. Find stillness in the space between your thigh bone and your hip. Find the stillness in your hip. Feel the release as you create space in your hip. Right? So feel how that will land well with them. In a balancing standing asana, imagine your foot grounding to the floor, right? Let the sound of the breath ground you to the floor. Or for a kinesthetic sense or notice, well, if you say notice, then you would combine, and we'll get back to combining language. The weight spreading evenly through your foot sole, or feel the ground beneath your foot. So look for ease in your neck and your shoulders. Exhale, let the shoulders drop. So this would be to, could be it could be a warrior two pose, for example. See. Yeah. So hey, what about a class? There are many there. We already spoke a little bit about combining different cues in their own language. So you will most likely have a variety. So first off here, observe. Observe how people in the class is responding to your teaching, and adjust. Try to spot the students' VA key, or visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Which one is their primary, what are they primarily operating from? So we spoke about how the eyes are revealing. So imagine that you have a student who never did, let's say, the tree pose. Right, and at the moment you see that, oh, this student is not responding as I expected. Maybe you spoke audible language, and then you will see the eyes of the student, going up and to the side, and then maybe down and up, both sides again, and down to the left. And you know that, okay, this student is visual. So let me go over and just give some visual cues. That could be, an easy, simple demonstration, just showing direction. Or if he's kinesthetic, and give a hands-on adjust. Yeah, that takes us to using the layered cueing, right? So if you know that you are speaking an audible language, you will typically see that a lot of the people in the class are responding to your cues, and then maybe you see one or two that need some visual guidance. So you could do that, like we said, with the three pose, or you could add some additional instruction. If it's three pose, imagine bringing your heel to your groin and standing tall like a tree. It could be enough, right? Some poses you have more time than others to deliver multiple cues. Prioritize the cueing. So I know we had this question in our previous webinar. How I can't do it all. So how so. As most of us, if we have a lead class, we know that, okay, we don't have enough time to, go and do hands-on adjustment on everyone. We do not have time to, do the pose together with them at the same time as we're instructing. So what I'm doing when I go down the aisle between the mats is, I might already know a student that needs some extra attention in a specific pose, or I might see that someone, okay, this person needs some hands-on adjustment. So in the next 5 counts, this is what I prioritize. So the same with the verbal cues. If you want to deliver an additional verbal cue, then make the priority. Okay, I have to I can't speak for 5 minutes and counting at the same time. So you have to prioritize. Yeah, mixing hands-on verbal, that's what we already mentioned, and using the layout of the class. That would be, place. Students, are visual in a way that they can see what is going on. So if you are demonstrating the whole class, then it makes sense to put them in the front of the class, right? So that they have a clear view to you. If you are mainly guiding verbally and are doing hands-on adjustments, then place them next to or behind someone who's already experienced, if possible, of course. Now, back to the verbal cues. So I put a sample up on the slide here. Again, it's about lengthening the spine. We all, most of my students here, when I say lengthen their spine, they do a back bend. So I have to add something. So you could add a language and mix the language in one sentence. That's one way to give layered verbal cues. So picture your spine growing tall. Listen to the breath as your spine is rising. And feel the lift from your base to your crown. So in one instruction there, you were able to put in all the representational systems so that you were actually including all the learning styles in one. Now, many of our asanas is a little bit harder than, it needs more explanation, right? So if you do not have time to give a long instruction, then you might do the first one, picture your spine growing tall, right? And then next breath, you might say, listen to the breath as as your spine is rising. And then on the third breath, or maybe on the next side, if you're doing 2 sides of this asana, then you can put in the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic language, one for each side, right? So layering it in that way. I think now is a good time for some new questions. So I got a couple of the chat, so none on the Q&A, but I've got a couple on the chat. So, won't it overwhelm a student if I layer all 3 styles at once? I think, of course, if you keep speaking nonstop in the class, you will overload your students. I think in a layered cue like the one we see, so the kinesthetic would probably ignore the first 2 instructions, or they would be confused in the first 2. So it would never land anyway, right? So they would only pick up the last one. So I don't think it will overload or overwhelm the students. However, I think it will overwhelm you as a teacher if you're going to use all of them all the time. So again, prioritize. Pick your language, pick the time for the language. If you have, if you know that your class is primarily auditory, right? and you have time to make a few hands-on adjustments during the class, and you have the ability to walk up front of the visual student and just give visual guidance on where to move the foot, for example, then that will be a lot easier for you. So I think a lot of this is about prioritizing, listening to the feedback or how the students are receiving your instructions, and then make the adjustments as you go. And the next one here is, how do I know when to adjust versus when to how do I know when to adjust a cue versus when to let it land as is? So it's a good question. It means it's hard to answer. So I think you have to prioritize, right? And it's, sometimes when I walk down the aisle here in my class, I see a student that, I would like to help that student, but no, I'm already on count 4. So I have no time to, so I just let it land as it is. Same with the verbal cues, if you don't have time, you did pick a way of giving your cue, and if it didn't land and you don't have time to follow up with a new one, then just leave it. Next time you can adjust. Okay, next question. Can you walk us through cueing a pose like downward dog using visual, auditory, and kinesthetic separately? Okay, so how would I cue a down dog from each of these learning styles? So let me think. Yeah. So for a visual one, they love shapes. They see things as shapes, as videos, as pictures. So while they're in there, imagine your body forming a V shape, the hips reaching up, and the spine growing long, and heels drawing towards the floor. So this would land well with a visual person who use imagery and shapes as references. Now for an auditory, so when they are in the pose, listen to your breath as it's guiding the rhythm of the pose. That sounds a little bit poetic. Let the inhale lift your hips, and let the exhale deepen your grounding. Just to summarize there, so an auditory would relate to rhythm. They would listen to their breath, right? The inner listening. Now, kinesthetic. It's actually a little bit easier because I'm a little bit kinesthetic myself, right? So feel the weight evenly distributed between your hands and feet. Press your palms to the floor, soften your shoulders. Notice the stretch along your back, on the back of your legs, and so on. All right. And also in a down dog, you typically have time to deliver a lot of cues. So I would probably not guide the whole down dog in one language here. You know, I would put some visual cues and some auditory cues and some kinesthetic cues in there because I have time. Okay. Okay, so more NLP for yoga professional. So I said we'll just touch on the surface of learning styles and cueing. Now, with the cueing, early we talked about distortion of information and deletion of information, which is where people would do mind reading and fill in some gaps to try to make meaning out of things. So there's a lot of more to learn from even from the language or within the language here. So areas where the NLP might help you as a yoga professional. That's of course your personal and professional development, communication and language. You know, in the beginning here we saw that you know, a thread in the questionnaire that I sent out and the response to it is that you guys and girls care about connecting with your students, right? On a deeper level. So speaking the same language, understanding how to communicate with your students. We have different filters that we can learn about, how we're filtering information, how we get motivated, how to deal with limiting beliefs and fears, and so on. It allows us to learn how to, the students' behavior, motivations, and limiting beliefs were already talked about. Guiding transformation. I mentioned earlier here that you know, trauma-informed yoga is something that is up and rising. It's giving a lot of attention from Yoga Alliance, for example. Clarity, intention, goal setting. You know, we're going more and more do yoga where they actually have goals, whether that's lifestyle changes, or they have physical or mental goals that they want to achieve. NLP can be a contribution and help on that. The presence, energetic connections. So Milton Erickson was mentioned in the beginning here, which was a hypnotherapist. And in NLP, we got something called Milton model, which is learning us how to, let's say, paint with the language to make it more useful and guide energies and connection and presence. Yeah. Any more questions so far? Leave it here for a few seconds to see if anyone have any questions to raise. No? Okay. If any questions should come up, then feel free to you know, go to our webpage, send us an email, and I'm more than happy to answer. So a little bit about what we do here at. So I got one here. When is the next session? I have not set up a next session yet, but I would probably do another one in 2 weeks' time after Easter. But also to answer that question, so we have from August, we start an NLP program for professionals. That's a 12-week long program. You would spend around 5 hours a week for the 12 weeks. It will be 2 hours Zoom session learning. Then there will be around an hour. You should consider an hour a week doing, experimenting with what we learned, integrating it in your daily life. And then we spend 1 hour a week in groups, sharing our insights and integrating the learning. There will also be an NLP, so the 12-week program, for those, I know there were people in the call here who already have training. So this would be equivalent to what you will find elsewhere as a NLP practitioner course. Though we will do it with as yoga professionals and specific to the yoga profession. That doesn't mean that it's not useful outside of yoga. It's useful in all aspects of life and professional. Now in July, we will have a 2-day workshop. The 2-day workshop in July will be on site and on Teams. That will be in total 10 hours, divided on the two days. The topic there will of course be a little bit slimmer than the full 12-week, but we will have an introduction to the most applicable concepts in NLP and for guiding a class. And then we also offer personal training programs. So if you want one-on-one sessions, we can do either as training or as coaching and advising. We also do groups. So if you have a group so if you are a studio owner and you want your teachers to learn NLP, we can also put together a private group training for your organization. Yeah, the 12-week program, by the way, is online on Zoom. All right. Then I think we are actually on time. There's 1 minute left. If there's any other questions, then please shout out. Otherwise, thank you for joining, and I hope to see you again in the future. Bye-bye.